The twin suns of the Varkon homeworld burned softly above the capital city, their golden light touching the white towers that reached high into the clouds. The streets below were silent. Millions of citizens watched from their homes, eyes fixed on the grand ceremony taking place in the royal hall. For the first time in living memory, a royal marriage was not a celebration but a treaty. Princess Lyrana Varkon, daughter of the High Emperor, stood before a mirror in her chamber. Her golden armor gleamed, polished to perfection. Around her neck she wore the crest of her people, a silver serpent curling around a star. Her heart was heavy, but her face was calm. She had been trained since childhood to show no weakness before others. Today, she would marry the one being her kind had sworn to avoid for all eternity. A human. His name was Commander Ethan Cross, an envoy from the far-off Terran system, a place so distant that most Varkons thought it was only a myth. He was not a prince or noble, but the Council said this union could end the 100-year war between the Varkon Dominion and the Galactic Alliance. Millions had died already. Entire worlds were ashes. Lyrana had seen too much loss to refuse peace, no matter how strange it seemed. A soft knock came at her door. Her old attendant, Sarai, stepped inside, eyes full of worry. "My princess," she whispered, "the hall awaits." "But are you truly ready to wed one of them?" Lyrana looked at her reflection, seeing the faint lines of fatigue on her otherwise perfect face. "Readiness has no meaning in duty, Sarai," she said quietly. "If this marriage ends the bloodshed, then my will does not matter." Sarai bowed but could not hide her fear. "They say his kind are cursed, that humans were once banned by the Council of Species." Lyrana's lips tightened. "So I've heard. But curses do not stop wars. Only decisions do." With that, she turned and walked out. Her long robe shimmered like liquid light, and her armored guards followed silently down the marble corridor. Outside, the sound of ceremonial horns filled the air. The royal hall was vast, its ceiling filled with floating crystals that glowed with gentle blue light. Representatives of 100 alien worlds sat in the high balconies. No one spoke. The tension was like a storm waiting to break. At the far end of the hall stood Ethan Cross. He was tall, taller than most Varkon men. His dark hair was neatly cut, and his sharp gray eyes scanned the hall calmly. He wore a simple black uniform, the symbol of the Terran Federation on his shoulder. There was no crown, no armor, no ornament, only the quiet strength in the way he stood. When Lyrana entered, a murmur swept through the room. The sight of a royal princess walking toward a human was enough to shake the faith of many. But Lyrana walked without hesitation, her every step echoing against the polished floor. Ethan bowed slightly when she stopped before him. "Your Highness," he said, his voice low and steady, "thank you for allowing this union." His words were formal, but his tone was respectful. Lyrana studied him for a moment, expecting arrogance or coldness. Instead, she saw something different, restraint. As if he carried some deep burden he did not wish to show. The High Emperor himself rose from his throne. His voice was strong and clear. "Today," he declared, "the Dominion of Varkon and the Terran Federation unite in purpose. Let this bond end the age of war. Let this union bring peace among the stars." The ancient marriage vow was spoken. 2 rings made of glowing crystal and forged from both worlds' metals were exchanged. As Lyrana placed the ring upon Ethan's hand, she noticed faint scars across his skin, small marks of battle. They looked old, yet somehow fresh. She wondered what kind of wars he had fought in the cold void beyond the stars. When it was done, the hall erupted in mixed emotions. Some cheered weakly, others whispered in shock. Many simply left in silence. The ceremony was short, yet it would be remembered forever. For the first time in galactic history, a human had married into alien royalty. As the pair turned to leave, Lyrana felt a strange chill run through her body. The whispers grew louder in her mind. Humans were forbidden for a reason. Their kind should never rise again. She tried to ignore the thought. After the ceremony, they were escorted to a high balcony overlooking the endless city lights. Guards kept their distance, leaving the two alone for the first time. Lyrana stood near the railing, not looking at him. "I did not expect you to look so ordinary," she said softly. Her tone was neither cruel nor kind, just curious. Ethan smiled faintly. "And I did not expect a princess to wear armor to her wedding." She turned her head slightly, eyes narrowing. "Among my people, armor is a symbol of strength. Among mine, Ethan said. It's a reminder that peace is fragile. His words made her pause. There was something unsettling about his calmness, as if he had already seen too much to be surprised by anything. Finally, she asked, "Do humans truly believe peace can last between our species?" He looked out at the city below. Peace lasts only as long as both sides protect it. That's why I'm here. Lorana frowned. You speak like a soldier. I am one, he replied. But I'm also tired of fighting. For the first time, she looked at him closely. There was a quiet sadness behind his eyes, but also determination, a kind she rarely saw even in her bravest generals. A moment of silence passed. Then, in the distance, thunder rolled across the clouds and rain began to fall over the shining city. That night, in the royal council chamber, the advisors of both factions gathered. The mood was tense. One Varkon general slammed his hand on the table. This marriage is madness. The people whisper that humans are cursed and now our princess is bound to one. Do you know what the ancient records say? Another counselor hissed. The Galactic Code forbids alliances with them. The Senate will not accept this. Ethan, who stood silently in the corner, finally spoke. If your laws were meant to prevent war, then why has your galaxy known nothing but it for 1,000 years? The room went silent. The generals looked away, insulted but unable to answer. Lorana stepped forward, her voice firm. Enough, the marriage is done. The treaty is signed. If peace is possible, it begins here. Her father, the Emperor, studied both of them. His expression was unreadable. You speak boldly, daughter. But remember, some truths are buried for a reason. Do not dig into human history too deeply. Lorana bowed her head respectfully. But inside, curiosity burned. Later, in her private quarters, she found Ethan standing near the window, looking at the stars. His posture was calm, his face thoughtful. Are you always this quiet? She asked. He smiled slightly. Only when I have nothing good to say. She raised an eyebrow. Then perhaps I should be glad. He chuckled softly. It was the first time she heard any warmth in his voice. You remind me of home, he said suddenly. Home? She repeated. Earth, he replied. Blue skies, green forests, oceans wider than worlds. It's far away now, but sometimes I can still feel it calling. There was a hint of longing in his tone. Lorana felt a strange tug in her chest. Why did your kind stay hidden for so long? She asked. Ethan turned to face her, his expression serious. Because the galaxy made sure we did. Before she could ask more, the palace alarm echoed through the night. Guards rushed in, shouting about an intruder. Lorana's hand went to her sword, but before she could move, Ethan was already at the door. Stay behind me, he said firmly. His voice carried authority, not arrogance, but command. And when the doors burst open and a cloaked assassin leapt forward with a plasma blade, Ethan moved faster than any Varkon warrior she had ever seen. A flash of light, a blur of motion, and the assassin lay disarmed on the floor, unconscious. Ethan stood above him, breathing steadily, untouched. Lorana stared in disbelief. You shouldn't have been able to. He looked back at her with those calm gray eyes. You'll learn soon enough, princess, he said quietly. Humans are full of surprises. And as the night fell silent again, the rain continued to fall on the palace towers, washing away the blood before it could stain the marble floors. But in the shadows beyond the stars, ancient forces stirred, watching, whispering. The forbidden bloodline had risen again. Morning light spread softly over the silver towers of the Varkon capital. The storm from the night before had passed, but whispers of it still lingered in the air. Princess Lorana Varkon stood on her balcony, watching the sun rise over the distant ocean. Her thoughts were troubled. The night's attack had shaken the palace, yet no one spoke of it openly. The assassin who had tried to kill her was found unconscious, alive but silent. Even under interrogation, he said nothing, only that the balance must be restored. But what unsettled Lorana most was not the attack itself. It was how Ethan Cross, her human husband, had moved. He had fought with speed and strength beyond anything she had seen before. And then he had simply walked away, as calm as ever. She turned when she heard the door open behind her. Ethan entered quietly, dressed in his dark uniform. He looked rested, though he had barely slept. Your guards are nervous, he said with a faint smile. They keep watching me as if I might break something. Lorana crossed her arms. Perhaps they fear what they don't understand. He nodded. That's usually how it begins. There was silence between them for a moment. Then she asked the question that had burned in her mind all night. What are you, Commander Cross? No one moves like that. No one survives a plasma strike and stands up again. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He looked out at the horizon. What am I? He repeated softly. A human. Nothing more. That's not an answer, she said sharply. He met her gaze. His gray eyes were steady but held a hint of something deeper, something tired. Your people think we're myths. Your historians erased us. But long ago, humans fought in wars far worse than this one. We adapted, evolved, learned. That's what we do, she frowned. Evolved how? He shook his head. You wouldn't believe me. Lorana stepped closer. Try me. Before he could reply, a palace guard entered, bowing quickly. Your Highness, the Council has summoned you both. The Senate has arrived for an emergency session. Lorana's expression hardened. Very well. Tell them we're on our way. The High Council chamber was filled with voices when they arrived. The grand dome above glowed faintly blue, the symbol of unity shining at its center. Representatives from both the Varkan Dominion and the Galactic Alliance stood on opposite sides of the room. The tension was thick. As soon as Lorana and Ethan entered, the noise stopped. All eyes turned toward them. An elderly alien senator with pale green skin stepped forward. Your Highness, he said sternly, we demand an explanation. The Council received reports that a human used forbidden abilities within the royal palace. This cannot be ignored. Lorana's eyes narrowed. Forbidden abilities? He defended me from an assassin? Defended? The senator repeated with disbelief. Witnesses claim he survived direct plasma impact without harm. No known species can do that. Another senator stood up. Humans were banned from the Alliance for a reason. Do you not remember the old wars, the experiments, the genetic— Enough! Lorana's voice cut through the hall. You speak of ancient fears, not facts. Commander Cross saved my life. You should thank him, not accuse him. But the senators only whispered more loudly. The word taboo echoed between them like poison. Finally, one of the royal advisors stepped forward and placed a small device on the table. A hologram appeared, an old image showing humans in battle armor standing among the ruins of worlds. Their eyes glowed faintly with light. This, the advisor said gravely, is why they were banned. Humans became too strong. They were not bound by limits as other species are. They could adapt to any condition, survive any weapon, and even alter their bodies over generations of war. The Council called them the unstable race. Their power threatened the balance of all life. Lorana stared at the projection, feeling cold. This is ancient history, she said slowly. Surely it's exaggerated. The advisor turned to Ethan. Then let him prove it false. Commander Cross, do you deny it? Ethan's jaw tightened. For a long moment he said nothing. Then quietly he spoke, I don't deny it, but I don't accept your version of it either. The chamber went silent. Ethan continued. Yes, humans adapted, we had to. The universe tried to kill us every way it could, radiation, plague, war, hunger. We learned to survive, but power was never our goal. We just refused to die. He looked around the room, his voice steady but strong. You call us forbidden because we remind you of what survival costs. Lorana felt something stir inside her. His words were not proud, they were painful. Like he carried the weight of a past he could never escape. One senator muttered, if even a single human lives with that strength, the galaxy will never be safe. Ethan turned toward him. Safety bought with fear isn't peace. It's control. The chamber erupted in argument. Voices rose, accusations flew, and the Emperor finally struck his staff against the floor to silence them. The discussion is over, he declared. The treaty stands. The marriage stands. But the human shall be observed closely. He looked at his daughter. Lorana, you are to ensure he brings no harm to our people. She bowed, though anger burned quietly in her chest. Later, in the gardens of the palace, Lorana found Ethan standing alone beside a small pond. The evening light made the water shimmer like liquid glass. You could have lied, she said softly. You could have denied everything. Ethan glanced at her. Would that have changed anything? Maybe, she said. They fear what you are. They should fear what they might become, he replied quietly. Not me. She tilted her head. What do you mean? Ethan looked up at the twin moons. The more a species tries to control others, the closer it gets to becoming what it hates. That's what happened last time. The galaxy united to destroy humanity, and in doing so, they became like us. Lorana's voice was low. The records say humans nearly destroyed a dozen worlds. He nodded slowly. And the records forget to say why. We were defending ourselves. Every alliance turned against us because we refused to obey their laws of weakness. His tone was calm, not angry. But the truth in his words felt heavy. Lorana took a slow breath. So that's why the council made you taboo. He met her eyes. It's easier to ban a species than to understand it. They stood in silence for a moment, the only sound the gentle flow of the water nearby. Then Ethan turned to her. I don't expect you to trust me, he said. But know this. If war comes again, I'll fight for peace, not destruction. Lorana studied him carefully. His face showed no arrogance, only quiet certainty. And in that certainty, she felt something unexpected. Hope. Before she could speak, a messenger drone flew into the garden and projected a hologram of the Emperor. His face was grave. Lorana, he said, you and Commander Cross must prepare to leave. The Alliance Senate demands your presence at the galactic capital. They wish to question this union themselves. Ethan's eyes narrowed. A hearing? More like a trial, the Emperor said. The galaxy has not forgotten its fear. The hologram faded. Lorana looked at Ethan. They want to end this before it begins. He nodded. Then we'll show them that fear doesn't rule us. That night, as the royal ship lifted off from the Varkon capital, Lorana stood beside Ethan at the viewport. The stars stretched out before them, endless and cold. She whispered, Do you ever regret being human? He smiled faintly. Sometimes. But then I remember, if survival is a curse, then it's one I can live with. As the ship entered the starlit void, Lorana felt both fear and curiosity battling within her heart. She had married a human to end a war, but now she began to realize something deeper. The true war had never ended. It had only been waiting for humanity to return. The royal starship Celestial Dove glided silently through the stars, heading toward the galactic capital. Its silver hull reflected the light of distant suns, and inside its command deck, Princess Lorana of Arkon stood beside the viewport, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. The galaxy stretched before her, a sea of light and darkness. Somewhere out there, millions watched her every move. She was no longer just a princess. She was the symbol of an alliance that half the galaxy feared. Behind her, Commander Ethan Cross studied the navigation display, calm as always. His quiet confidence both comforted and unsettled her. For 3 days, they had traveled without rest. The ship's crew avoided speaking to Ethan unless necessary. Most of them kept their distance, whispering when they thought he couldn't hear. The fear of humans was still alive, buried deep but not forgotten. Finally, Lorana broke the silence. They're going to question everything about you, she said quietly. About us. The Senate won't stop until they find a reason to end this union. Ethan nodded. I know. And you're not afraid? He looked at her with a faint smile. Fear is a tool. It only controls you if you let it. Lorana frowned slightly. You speak as if you've faced worse. I have, he said simply. Your galaxy is dangerous, but you've never seen what waits in the dark between stars. Before she could ask what he meant, the ship's alert lights flashed red. The captain's voice came over the comms, tense and sharp. Your Highness, unknown ships have entered our flight path. No identification signals. They're fast. Lorana turned toward Ethan, but he was already moving toward the control station. Show them on screen, he ordered. The view shifted to display a cluster of dark shapes sliding out of hyperspace, sleek, silent ships with black hulls and glowing blue engines. Their markings were faint, almost erased by time, but Ethan recognized them instantly. Those aren't pirates, he said slowly. Those are human designs, the captain's voice trembled. Human ships. But that's impossible, there are no other human fleets. Ethan stared at the screen. You're wrong. Those ships are from the Remnants. The Remnants. The name echoed like a ghost in his mind. They were the last surviving group of old Earth soldiers, humans who had fled into deep space after the Galactic War. For centuries, they had hidden beyond charted systems, watching the galaxy rebuild itself. No one knew if they still existed. Until now, the communication panel beeped. A distorted voice came through the static. This is Admiral Vance of the Remnant Fleet. We seek the one called Ethan Cross. Lorana exchanged a shocked glance with him. They know you? Ethan hesitated. Yes, they were part of my command once. The Admiral's voice continued. You have broken the ancient law. You stand beside an alien ruler bound by their blood. Humanity does not kneel to others. Explain yourself. Lorana's expression hardened. They sound more like warlords than survivors. Ethan opened a private channel. Vance, this isn't your concern. The war is over. Over? The Admiral replied bitterly. The galaxy still fears us. They still call us forbidden. And now you join them? Enough, Ethan said firmly. I made this choice for peace, not surrender. For a long moment the line was silent. Then the Admiral spoke again. You forget what peace cost us. If the galaxy remembers humanity, it will not be for mercy. And with that, the transmission cut off moments later. The remnant ships vanished into hyperspace, gone as suddenly as they appeared. The ship's crew slowly relaxed, but the air remained tense. Lorana turned to Ethan, eyes sharp. You knew this would happen, he sighed. I hoped it wouldn't. The remnants have been waiting for a reason to reveal themselves. And now you've given them one, she said quietly. Our marriage, he didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew the truth. The forbidden bloodline had drawn attention from every corner of the galaxy. When they arrived at the galactic capital, thousands had gathered in the spaceport plaza. News of their arrival had spread across the stars. Some shouted insults. Others waved banners of peace. As Lorana stepped off the ship with Ethan beside her, cameras flashed from every direction. Drones hovered in the air, recording every step they took. Inside the Senate Hall, hundreds of alien delegates filled the chamber. The walls shimmered with light, displaying the flags of countless worlds. At the center stood the High Speaker, an elder with silver skin and eyes like crystal. Princess Lorana of Varkon. Commander Ethan Cross of Earth, he began. You are summoned here under Article 117, the Law of Species Separation. Do you understand the gravity of your actions? Lorana lifted her chin proudly. I do, and I stand by them. Our marriage ended a war that killed billions. Is that not enough reason to change old laws? The speaker's gaze turned to Ethan. And you, human? Do you seek power through this union? Ethan's voice was calm but firm. I seek peace. Power never interested me. The hall murmured, unconvinced. A young senator stood up, eyes blazing. Lies, humans crave dominance. We all remember the First War. Your kind turned planets into graves. Ethan looked straight at him. And your kind joined that war. Do you remember that part, Senator? The chamber erupted in argument. Some shouted for punishment, others for understanding. Amid the noise, Lorana spoke again, her voice strong enough to cut through it. Enough. You speak as if peace is weakness. But I've seen war. I've buried soldiers, civilians, children. If fear is your answer, then none of us deserve this galaxy. Her words echoed across the hall. For a moment, even the senators were silent. Then the speaker said, Your words carry weight, Princess, but fear is not easily forgotten. After the hearing, Lorana and Ethan were placed under protective watch. They were given quarters in a high tower overlooking the glowing city below. That night, Lorana sat by the window, staring at the endless sea of lights. Ethan stood behind her, silent as always. They don't want peace, she said softly. They want control. They're afraid you'll change everything. Ethan nodded. Maybe I already have, she looked at him. The remnants, they said humanity doesn't kneel. Were they always like that? He took a deep breath. No, once they were heroes. But too much fear can twist even the best of us. Lorana's expression softened. They see you as a traitor. I know, he said quietly. But if being a traitor means choosing peace over pride, then I can live with that. A small smile touched her lips. You speak like a philosopher, not a soldier. He smiled faintly back. Soldiers learn philosophy the hard way. They stood in silence, the city lights reflecting in their eyes. Then suddenly the room lights flickered. The floor trembled. Outside, alarms began to wail. Ethan rushed to the balcony and froze. Across the sky, massive shadows moved among the stars. Remnant warships, hundreds of them, had entered orbit above the capital. A message blared through every communication channel in the city. This is Admiral Vance. The time for hiding is over. The galaxy must remember what it feared. Humanity does not beg, it commands. Explosions flared across the defense grid as the remnant fleet fired warning shots. Panic spread through the streets below. Lorana turned to Ethan. They're here for you. He nodded grimly. And for you. To remind the galaxy that the forbidden are never truly gone. She grabbed his arm. Then what do we do? He looked out at the stars, his expression calm but resolute. We do what humans have always done. What's that? We survive. As the night sky burned with streaks of light and fear gripped the galactic capital, Ethan Cross stood tall beside the alien princess he had married. The galaxy had tried to bury the past, but the past had returned with human fire and forgotten vengeance. And deep inside Lorana's heart, she began to understand why humanity had been called taboo. It wasn't because they were monsters. It was because nothing in the galaxy could stop them once they decided to rise again. The galaxy had fallen silent after the message from the human remnant fleet. For the first time in centuries, no one dared to move their warships, no one dared to fire a shot. The void between the stars seemed to hold its breath. Princess Lorana stood at the window of the Varkan royal citadel, looking at the distant lights of the remnant fleet. Thousands of human ships filled the darkness like a swarm of glowing shadows, each one alive with old power. Their formation was perfect, too perfect. Even the greatest empires of the galaxy could not match such unity. Beside her stood Commander Ethan Cross, her husband, the human whose presence had changed everything. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, scanning every sensor feed. They came because of me, Ethan said quietly. They think I am in danger. Lorana turned to him. They answered to you without a single signal. That means they still follow your kind. They follow no one. He replied softly. They remember. They remember what the galaxy did to them. To us, Lorana felt a chill. The remnant fleet was not attacking, not moving closer, but their presence alone was enough to terrify every world within the Galactic Alliance. Already, senators and generals were screaming through the communication channels, demanding answers, demanding that the humans withdraw. The Alliance feared one thing, the return of the species they had once banned from existence. Later that night, Lorana stood in the council chamber, surrounded by Varkan nobles and Alliance representatives. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Holograms of alien ambassadors flickered across the air. They must leave, shouted a Luron diplomat. The humans bring war wherever they go. Their very existence is a threat. Another added. Lorana looked at them, her voice steady. And what have your wars brought us? Centuries of death. Endless fear. You fear humans because they are strong. But maybe strength is what this galaxy needs now, to protect, not destroy. The room fell into silence. No one expected such words from her. One of her generals stepped forward. Your Highness, with all respect, those are dangerous thoughts. The humans nearly ended all life in the First Galactic War. And who started that war? Lorana asked sharply. It was not humanity. It was the empires who feared them. The same fear you speak with now. The general had no answer. As arguments rose again, Ethan stood quietly behind her, saying nothing, but his silence spoke louder than words. His presence reminded everyone in that room that the so-called monsters of legend were not creatures of rage, but living beings, capable of restraint. Outside, the fleets moved. The Alliance had sent massive warships toward the Varkan system, claiming they were for observation. In truth, they were preparing for battle. The Varkan defense grid powered up, shields glowing across the planet's upper atmosphere. Lorana watched the unfolding chaos with heavy heart. They will attack soon, she said. Ethan nodded. Yes, and if they do, the remnants will respond. Then everything will burn, he turned to her. We still have a chance. You can stop this, Lorana. They will listen to you before they listen to me. She looked into his eyes. And if I fail? Then the galaxy learns the price of fear, Ethan said. A few hours later, a galaxy-wide broadcast went live. The Varkan royal insignia appeared first, then the image of Princess Lorana herself. Her expression was calm but firm. Behind her stood Ethan in his dark uniform, silent but proud. Her voice echoed across countless systems, translated into hundreds of alien tongues. People of the galaxy, she began. I am Lorana of the Varkan Dominion. I married a human to end a war. I did not expect to discover the truth the galaxy has hidden for ages. She paused, letting her words sink in. They told us humans were monsters, that they were forbidden because of their hunger for conquest. But I have lived beside one. I have seen his heart, his mercy, his strength. And I ask you, what kind of monsters protect instead of destroy? What kind of monsters fight to save lives that are not their own? She looked straight into the camera. If humanity was banned because of their strength, then maybe the galaxy needs that strength again. Not for domination, but for peace. Her message spread like wildfire. Billions of people across the stars watched in silence. On distant colonies, miners and farmers, ordinary beings, felt something awaken in their hearts. For the first time, someone spoke against the ancient lies. Ethan stood beside her, watching her courage shine brighter than any fleet. When the message ended, the galaxy erupted not in war but in voices. Some shouted for her to be arrested, calling her speech a threat to stability. Others hailed her as a visionary, a bringer of truth. Across the stars, small uprisings began. Civilian ships began sending messages of peace to the remnants. "We are not your enemies," they said. "We only want to understand." The Alliance Senate split into two factions, those who wanted to destroy the humans, and those who believed it was time to let go of the past. In orbit, the remnant fleet received her broadcast. Admiral Hayes, an old human with silver hair and eyes like cold fire, watched from his command ship. "She's brave," he said. "Too brave for her world. Do we move, sir?" A younger officer asked. Hayes shook his head. "No, let the galaxy see what we have become. We will not strike first. Not this time." And so the remnant stood still, their ships unmoving, waiting in silence. On the Varkon capital, the situation grew tense. Alliance fleets now surrounded the system. The skies above the planet burned with weapon lights as ships locked onto targets. Lyrana stood beside Ethan on the command bridge. "They don't believe our words," she whispered. "They will," Ethan said. "But sometimes belief takes fire to be born." Suddenly, alarms blared. "Incoming fleet detected! It's the Alliance main force!" Lyrana clenched her fists. "They're going to attack anyway." Ethan looked at her. "Then we'll remind them what restraint looks like." He opened a secure communication line to the remnant fleet. "This is Commander Cross. Do not engage. Repeat, do not fire unless fired upon." His voice was calm, but every human in the fleet obeyed instantly. That control, that discipline was what frightened the other species most. Humanity did not act in rage, they acted with purpose. Minutes passed. The first plasma bolt streaked across space, hitting the remnant shields. The humans did not return fire. The Alliance commanders shouted orders, confused. Why aren't they fighting back? Because the humans were waiting. Then Lyrana stepped forward. She ordered the Varkon flagship to transmit a final message across all channels. Her voice filled the stars once more. "Look at them! They are being attacked, and yet they do not strike back. If this is what we call monsters, then perhaps the monsters were never them, but us." For a long moment there was silence. Then, slowly, the Alliance ships began to power down their weapons. One by one, their engines dimmed. Commanders across the fleet ordered a ceasefire. The galaxy had never seen such restraint, such control. Humanity, once banned for being too dangerous, had just proven they were capable of peace when others were not. Ethan stood beside her, eyes on the view screen. "You did it," he said quietly. "No," Lyrana replied, we did." That day became known as the awakening of humanity. It was not a battle won by weapons, but by courage, patience, and truth. The galaxy had seen the power of a forbidden species, and realized that power did not always mean destruction. In that silence after the storm, millions across the stars began to question everything they had been taught. And in that quiet, the bond between a human and a Varkon princess grew stronger than any treaty ever written. But deep within the dark edges of the universe, something ancient stirred, a forgotten weapon from the time of the First Galactic War, and its sensors had just detected the reappearance of human life. Weeks after the events in the galactic capital, news of Princess Lyrana's speech and the human remnant's restraint spread to every star system. Ships of war no longer blocked trade routes. Once feared patrols now stood in neutral observation. The galaxy, long divided by fear, paused to reconsider its beliefs. Yet beneath the fragile calm, shadows stirred. Deep in the uncharted void, beyond sensors and charts, something ancient awakened. It was a weapon older than the First Galactic War, hidden for millennia, designed to destroy any species that grew too powerful. Humanity, once declared taboo, had been marked for extinction before. Now, with humans returning openly, the weapon stirred, sensing the resurgence of what had once been forbidden. On the Varkon capital, Lorana walked the quiet corridors of the palace with Ethan by her side. The warships in orbit were no longer a threat, at least not yet. But the princess could not shake the feeling that something waited. "Do you feel it?" she asked quietly. Ethan studied the stars beyond the glass walls. "Yes, something is watching." "Something old and patient," Lorana frowned. "What could be stronger than the fleets we've just faced?" He shook his head. "Strength comes in many forms, Princess. Not all of it is made of ships or weapons. Some of it waits hidden until it is ready to act." She looked at him. "Are you saying humanity is not yet safe?" Ethan's gray eyes were steady. "We are never truly safe, but we survive because we adapt. That is why we endure." She nodded slowly, realizing for the first time that she had married not just a man, but a living legacy of survival itself, a species that had endured centuries of fear, exile, and war. The next morning, a warning arrived from the edge of the galaxy. Sensors had detected an unknown object moving at impossible speeds. Its size dwarfed even the largest battleships. Its shape was not natural. It was angular, sharp, and dark as a void without stars. Data scans could not penetrate its hull. It emitted energy readings that matched nothing in the known galaxy. "This is not a ship," Ethan said grimly. "It is something far older, something designed for extinction." Lorana turned pale. "And it's coming here?" He nodded. "Yes, and when it arrives, it will judge all who live in this system." The palace council erupted in panic, but Lorana raised her hand. "Listen to me. We will not panic. We have faced fear before and we survived. Humanity survives because it refuses to die, and now we stand together with all who wish for peace. That is how we fight. Together." Ethan called a meeting with the human remnants. From their command ship, he addressed hundreds of veterans who had hidden for centuries. "The galaxy fears us," he said. "But today we show that fear is not weakness. An ancient weapon has awakened. Its purpose is to destroy what it perceives as dangerous. That means us. That means the Varkon Dominion, and anyone who stands with us. We must act." The humans nodded, their silence carrying the weight of experience. They had survived centuries in hiding, faced empires and near extinction. And now they would face something older than all of it. Lorana stood beside Ethan. "We will fight with strategy, not just strength," she said. "We will not allow the galaxy to suffer while the weapon decides what is right or wrong." Ethan's lips curved into a faint smile. "You've learned fast, Princess," she gave a small laugh. "I've had the best teacher." The first encounter came suddenly. Sensors detected energy pulses tearing through space-time, like invisible claws slicing through the void. Alliance scouts vanished without a trace. The weapon moved faster than any known technology. But Ethan had studied old human strategies, training his fleet in anticipation of impossible attacks. When the weapon entered Varkon orbit, it did not fire immediately. It scanned, analyzed, and then in a massive pulse of energy it tested the defenses. Shields flared, warning alarms screamed, and yet not a single human ship fired back without orders. The remnants held position, calm, coordinated, and lethal in their precision. Lorana watched from the palace tower as energy beams from the ancient weapon struck the orbiting ships. One by one, Alliance vessels collapsed under the onslaught. But the remnants adapted instantly, repositioning, shielding, and countering in ways the enemy could not predict. Ethan's voice came over her calm. "Stay calm. This weapon expects fear. It expects panic. Show it something different. Show it what humans do." And then, for the first time, the impossible happened. A human ship moved directly toward the weapon, not to attack, but to study it. The ship's sensors penetrated the unknown technology. Its energy readings, previously incomprehensible, began to align with human understanding. Ethan commanded the fleet. "Engage only when you understand it. Use their power against their design, not to destroy blindly." Hours passed. Lorana stood at the bridge, heart pounding, watching the largest weapon the galaxy had ever feared, shimmering, untouchable, finally react. Not in destruction, but in recognition. It adjusted its course, recalculated its approach, and paused. The humans had survived. Not because of weapons, not because of sheer force, but because they had learned to adapt faster than anything the galaxy could build. Finally, Ethan and Lorana addressed the galaxy through a broadcast. "Citizens of every world," Lorana began, her voice steady. Today you witnessed the return of a species you called forbidden. You feared them, you banned them, you attempted to erase them. Yet they stand not as conquerors but as protectors. Humanity has survived, not because of strength alone, but because of courage, discipline, and the will to endure. If the galaxy wishes to survive alongside them, it must learn the same. Ethan stepped forward. We were forbidden once because we adapted too quickly. We survived when others would not. We were considered dangerous, but we are no longer hiding. We are here to protect life, not destroy it. Let this be the beginning of understanding. Let the galaxy remember that fear cannot guide the future. Only wisdom and courage can. Across the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some worlds cheered, inspired by the courage of a species once banned. Some fleets, still skeptical, withdrew to observe. Ancient alliances began to reconsider their policies. Old fears, though still present, began to fade as the galaxy realized that humanity's return was not a threat, but a challenge to rise above fear itself. Lorana turned to Ethan, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. You've done it, she whispered. No, he said quietly. We've done it. Together. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had seen humans not as monsters, not as forbidden, but as equals. And the bond between Lorana and Ethan symbolized a new era, one built on trust, courage, and survival. But even in victory, they knew the galaxy would not be fully at peace. Ancient weapons, old grudges, and hidden threats still lingered. The remnants would remain vigilant. The Alliance would continue to watch. And far in the unknown void, remnants of enemies long thought destroyed stirred quietly, testing the limits of human and Varkon resilience. Yet for now, in the capital of Varkon, Princess Lorana and Commander Ethan Cross stood together on the balcony, overlooking the city lights. I once thought marrying you was only a duty, Lorana said softly. But now I see it was destiny. Ethan smiled faintly. Destiny is something we choose, not something written. And we chose to survive, together. She leaned into him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Then let the galaxy fear less and hope more, he nodded. Yes. Let them see that strength is not just power, but wisdom, courage, and restraint. Above them, the twin suns of Varkon set, casting long shadows over the city. The light of a new era spread across the stars, illuminating the galaxy for the first time in centuries. A human and a Varkon princess had rewritten history, not with war, but with courage, peace, and the forbidden legacy of survival. And in the distance, among the stars, new challenges waited. But they would face them together, because humanity once forbidden was back and nothing in the galaxy could stop it.